Pinned down by a sniper's sight, the man suddenly froze. Was he kidding, or just tired of acting? Even when an out-of-control car rushed straight at him, he stood there motionless. After mentally calculating the time, he immediately ducked down. Although he is a magician, he looks more like a fortune teller because every performance is based on prediction. He guessed that the lady's necklace would fall in another 3 seconds. The girl didn't believe it, so he started counting down. Is this guy cool or what? Cris Johnson possesses the ability to see through the future within a 2-minute window. Thanks to this power, his life is incredibly free, and he never worries about a lack of money. Whenever he is short on cash, he just visits a slot machine, presses a button at random, and wins a big prize. Although he wins wherever he plays, Cris never goes overboard because he understands the philosophy that tall trees catch much wind. The sheep's wool must be sheared gradually to last a long time. Even though he was maximally cautious, his excessive lucky streak still caused the casino manager to keep an eye on him. The manager and his guards discussed tensely, but still couldn't figure out what trick Cris had pulled. Right at that moment, Cris seemed to feel someone watching him, so he suddenly looked straight into the camera. Look, it seems he is looking at us. It's as if he can hear what we are saying. Which table is he sitting at? Table 27. The casino manager decided to get tough, directing his subordinates to detain Cris first and figure it out later. However, Cris had already foreseen his situation and stood up to exchange his chips to prepare for his escape. But right at that moment, a robber suddenly appeared and, without saying a word, pulled out a gun. Cris escaped the vision he had just foreseen, and as soon as the robber revealed himself, he immediately took action to subdue him. The trouble was that the security guards rushed in and mistook him for the troublemaker. Knowing it would be hard to explain, Cris turned and ran. The casino manager immediately ordered all exits sealed. But Cris, the man who could see 2 minutes into the future, had already outlined an escape plan. First, he bent down, pretending to blow his nose to slip past the first guard. Then at the turn, he pretended to light a cigarette and bent down to tie his shoelaces to avoid the gaze of the second one. He leaned his back against a slot machine and took a deep breath, unintentionally avoiding the third person's line of sight. Glancing at his watch to time it, he managed to skillfully dodge the 4th patrol wave. He quickly turned into the right corridor, gliding past the 5th guard by a hair's breadth. Cris calmly walked into the toilet, took off his jacket, threw it in the trash, and leaned against the wall to wait. He handily swiped an old man's hat as well. He stepped out of the restroom, immediately pretending to stand next to a vending machine, avoiding the last 2 guards who had just rushed in. Finally, Cris casually left the casino, threw the hat away, and calmly stepped into a waiting convertible. He started the engine and drove off decisively. The casino manager was furious witnessing that scene, immediately noting down the license plate number and reporting it to the police. The police also reacted extremely quickly. Before long, Cris's car was being closely tailed and pursued fiercely by 2 police cars. Although his driving skills were slick, he still couldn't shake them off. The 2 police cars stuck like leeches, causing Cris to be distracted and not pay attention to the road. The consequence was that a car accident occurred. Fortunately, that was just a vision he foresaw. It seemed that running at 80 kilometers per hour would inevitably result in crashing into a train. So Cris floored the gas pedal, pushing the speed to over 120 kilometers per hour. Just barely dodging the horrific collision, Cris finally escaped the pursuit and returned to his temporary hideout. That was the house of his best friend, one of the few people who knew about his prophetic ability. Though as always, the friend kept harping on the advice for Cris to limit using his predictive power to avoid trouble. But Cris understood perfectly well that even if he didn't look for trouble, trouble would find its way to him. For instance, this uninvited guest. I am an FBI agent. Next time you want to steal a car, avoid the ones with anti-theft tracking. But Cris remained very calm because he had foreseen her appearance. He just wasn't clear why his petty tricks had attracted the FBI's attention. Facing Cris's indifferent attitude, Callie didn't beat around the bush. She stated bluntly that she had noticed Cris's distinctiveness a few months prior. When watching him perform magic, at first she wasn't sure. Only when rewatching the recording and seeing how Cris utilized a series of coincidences to bypass casino security did she fully confirm her deduction. I want you to see the future. Show me where that nuclear bomb is located. The lives of millions of people are hanging by a thread. Perhaps he is the one who can stop the impending disaster. It turned out that not long ago, a nuclear bomb was smuggled into the US by terrorists and hidden somewhere. Callie wanted to use Cris's ability to find the bomb's location, but Cris flatly refused for 2 reasons. First, he cannot predict events that are not related to him and are more than 2 minutes into the future. Second, when he was small, he was deemed by the police to have mental issues and was thrown into a treatment institution. Therefore, he had completely lost faith in the police and didn't want to help either. But Callie seemed to have anticipated that Cris would be uncooperative. Outside, The police had tightly surrounded this area for a long time. "You're right, I have to run." Fortunately, all the events that just happened were only a scene Cris foresaw, since he knew the outcome, to quietly sneak out the back door, leaving Callie to find an empty house. He predicted it, didn't he? The very next morning he appeared at a diner. He continuously checked his watch with a restless look, as if waiting for someone. Since discovering he could see the future, Cris realized he could only predict things related to himself and not beyond 2 minutes. But there was a girl who broke that rule. Because for over 10 years, there had always been a recurring dream that on a certain day at 8:09 a.m. at a restaurant, the destiny of his life would appear. And today was that day. When the clock hands pointed to 8:09, the girl of his dreams walked into the restaurant, precise to the second. Gazing at that figure, both strange and familiar, Cris stared intently, completely dazed, wanting to find out why that girl had always been present in his dreams for so many years. He immediately stood up and approached to get acquainted. "Hello, do you mind if I sit with you?" "Actually, I do mind." It seemed the old way of striking up a conversation didn't work. Cris immediately switched to a friendly tactic. "Sorry to bother you. I have a question about the coffee. It seems the beans they use. You should probably ask the waiter that question, right?" "Excuse me, do you have a lighter?" "I don't smoke." "Stop it, don't." Continuously trying all kinds of flirting resulted in miserable failure. Cris fell right into an awkward situation, but right at that moment, a man in a vest appeared, causing the situation to reverse unexpectedly. The dialogue between the two of them seemed quite tense, and the man even started to get physical afterward. Cris realized the time had come, so he stood up to stop the other guy's rude behavior. "Who are you?" "I am her future." He easily played a prank on the man and then confidently introduced himself to the girl. Just when Cris thought the hero saving the beauty act would be effective, unexpectedly, his overly obvious introduction, combined with the violent behavior, caused the girl to feel antipathy. "You two just stay there and fight." Helpless. So this time, when facing the next punch from the guy in the white vest, Cris chose to stubbornly take the hit. Although it was very painful, he successfully won the girl's sympathy. Sure enough, women live emotionally. Only the self-inflicted suffering strategy is the eternal undefeated card. Cris also took the chance to learn her name was Liz. Pushing his advantage while the first impression was still good, Cris immediately managed to hop into her car. But what amazed him was that Liz drove thousands of miles to Arizona to work as a volunteer teacher at a Native American reservation. Twice a week she came here to teach the children, even thoughtfully preparing a birthday gift for one kid. Liz stood amidst a stream of children surrounding her, radiating a warm maternal aura. Her beauty, her heart, and the fateful encounter made Cris tremble as if he were truly in love. "I think he's into you." "Why do you think so?" "Because the way he looks at you is exactly the way my brother looks at his girlfriend." Being exposed, Cris wasn't embarrassed at all. He walked straight up to the boy whose birthday was today and showed off a small magic trick. "Hold it tight, keep it just like that. This is the moment to witness a miracle, it won't bite. Happy birthday, kid." This charming side also made Liz's heart flutter. She gradually lowered the guard in her heart due to the pouring rain. The two finally arrived at a motel with only exactly one room left. Encountering such a God-sent opportunity, Cris did not take advantage of the situation. On the contrary, he was very gallant, voluntarily offering to sleep in the car for the night. Good night. The long night dragged on, hearts fluttering. That night, Liz tossed and turned, unable to close her eyes. The next morning, Liz stepped out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel. Cris immediately gifted the beauty who had just appeared a small magic trick. The flaring flame made Liz's heart tremble violently. "You are very beautiful." "I can't believe what you mean. I mean like this." But just as both were immersed in romance, the Federal Bureau of Investigation also tracked down Chris's location via surveillance cameras. This time, to ensure no loopholes, Callie positioned police densely around the motel. At the same time, when Liz just went out to buy breakfast, she was stopped and taken into a car, where Chris's true identity was exposed. In the car, Callie described Cris as delusional and having antisocial tendencies. The federal agent status, combined with the tape recording the scene of Cris pulling a gun in the casino, made Liz start to waver. The black police officer handed her a bottle of pills. She just needed to put them in fruit juice for Cris to drink, and after 5 minutes, he would fall asleep. At that time, the police would rush in to arrest him. But what Callie didn't expect was that every move of the police had been monitored by another terrorist organization beforehand. It turned out that the terrorist leader, to ensure the nuclear bomb smuggled into the US would explode smoothly, had always been secretly investigating Callie's whereabouts. He also discovered that Callie was trying her best to find a person with the ability to foresee the future, which was Cris. Although he didn't believe in such a ridiculous story, to be absolutely careful, the boss still sent a group of assassins to follow the police, preparing to eliminate Cris, a potential threat. But what Callie expected even less was that she had underestimated a woman in love. When Liz returned to the motel in a state of confused anxiety and secretly put the drug into the glass of juice, suddenly Cris gently hugged her from behind, causing her weak defensive wall to collapse completely. "Don't drink that glass. I put drugs in it." "Oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I really don't know what I'm doing." Liz told Cris everything about Callie finding her. After hearing this, Cris just remained silent and quietly turned on the TV to create noise to avoid being eavesdropped on. Then he switched to the drug-free glass of juice, naturally opened the door to step out onto the balcony, and pretended to casually drink that glass. This helped him, and Liz gained 5 minutes of safety. Then he immediately went back into the room and confessed everything to Liz about his prophetic ability. "Oh my God, you really are delusional." Cris understood that anyone else would think he was crazy. Therefore, he decided to prove it right on the spot.
सुरक्षा क्या है? सुरक्षा सारे अधिकार है।
"How did you do that?" "I don't know how I do it either, but I can do it because it's innate." Although it sounded unbelievable, what Cris demonstrated made it impossible for Liz not to believe. With such a strange truth, and to avoid dragging her into danger, Cris told Liz to wait exactly 45 seconds and then follow the instructions in the note. As for himself, he hurriedly left the room to distract the police. Callie, who was monitoring the motel, saw that scene and immediately felt something was wrong. But Cris had jumped down and ran straight down the mountainside. The police disguised as workers and Callie immediately chased after him. Just as Cris was running along the route planned in his head, he suddenly predicted the appearance of a sniper planted by the terrorists. Scary, just like using game hacks. A turn of his head confused even the sniper, who called himself a marksman. Meanwhile, at the 45th second, Liz followed the instructions in the note. She started a car and then quickly jumped out of the driver's seat. The car crashed into the cliff ahead due to inertia, causing a landslide that sent a pile of logs sliding down the slope. The rolling logs blocked the path of most of the pursuing police force. After precisely dodging the out-of-control car, Cris finally escaped onto the small road. But he didn't expect that Callie was lying in wait at the spot. He definitely had to pass. Right at that moment, the landslide caused a large pile of logs to collapse. Facing the rolling logs, Callie suddenly holstered her gun, looking as if she were ready to sacrifice herself. "Will you watch me die without saving me?" But Chris's rare compassion was ultimately not appreciated by Callie. On the contrary, he was locked in a sealed room, forced to use a device to prop his eyes wide open, and made to watch the news on the TV in front of him. To save the lives of millions of people in the city, Callie was forced to compel Cris to use his prophetic ability to find where the nuclear warhead was placed. When encountering a robber who had emptied his magazine, Cris had the ability to immediately deduce all possible results that could happen to himself. His future held only one dead end. Faced with that situation, Cris was forced to try and surpass his limits to look further into the future. Unexpectedly, in the future news report, he saw his lover. A breaking news report stated she was strapped with bombs by terrorists. The location was a parking lot. The time was 6 p.m. when the bomb squad prepared to rush in for the rescue. Boom. Cris snapped back after seeing the future scene, trying to suppress his emotions. At 6 p.m. this evening, Liz, his lover, would be blown to pieces. That was a future he absolutely could not accept. Therefore, Cris finally agreed to cooperate with the police. He and Callie went to the parking lot where the explosion would occur in the future. He began utilizing his prophetic ability to trace the source. Finally, he managed to see the license plate number of the terrorists. Immediately after, the police traced the license plate to retrieve information and quickly found the terrorist organization's lair. This caused the terrorists, who were preparing to go to the parking lot, to be ambushed by surprise. They couldn't react in time. Both sides immediately fell into a fierce gunfight. But thanks to Chris's prediction ability, every hidden terrorist was exposed. Take down the guy on that crane in the northeast corner. The terrorist leader had controlled Liz and taken her inside the ship's hold. Cris also immediately followed under the protection of soldiers armed to the teeth. Under the guidance of his prophetic ability, even though the terrorists had planted light sensor C4 at the corners, Cris still timely knew about each one. Just as Cris stepped to a turn, he was suddenly shot in the chest. Fortunately, that was only an image he foresaw. Thanks to that, the special forces received a timely warning and quickly eliminated the hiding sniper. It is called prediction ability, but actually, Chris's ability is like rehearsing the future, as if he splits into countless clones, directly experiencing each different future. In the blink of an eye, Cris grasped the entire layout inside the ship's hold. Finally, in one possible future, he found traces of Liz. When Cris and Callie cornered the terrorist leader, he still stubbornly tried to resist, but under Chris's game hack-like prediction ability, he was eventually shot down by Callie. However, when they opened the container meant to hold the nuclear warhead, it was completely empty inside. Clearly, the nuclear warhead had been moved beforehand. Cris looked at the city's satellite map on the computer screen. Suddenly, he realized he seemed to have missed a fatal detail. Right at that moment, the nuclear bomb exploded a few kilometers away. Cris opened his eyes wide and realized he was still lying in bed in the small hotel. It turned out that everything that had just happened was just a vision he had foreseen. It was thanks to Liz's existence that Chris's prediction ability was strongly enhanced, completely breaking previous limits. Now, he could see the future up to 24 hours ahead instead of just 2 minutes as before. And this time, the future lies in Chris's hands, and the movie also ends here.